All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you guys for coming and participating in our very first career seminar. So the alumni working group wanted to put a seminar on to help gap the bridge between career and graduating. So we hope this is a helpful session for you guys. Just a reminder, please turn on your camera if you can, and mute your microphones. If you have any questions, comments, or reactions, please use the Zoom features for that. And this session will be recorded, and it will be uploaded to first2network.org by this Friday afternoon. And there will be a quick survey that we would like for you guys to take at the end of the session. And at the end of the session as well, we have a couple giveaways for you guys to do just for coming in and seeing us. All right, without further ado, we'll go ahead and introduce our panelists. So this is our outline. So we're going to introduce our panelists, have a little Q&A session, and then have some breakout sessions so you guys can ask some more in-depth questions targeted to whoever you guys want to ask, and then we'll do some giveaways at the end. So in no particular order, is Tia on here? It doesn't look like it, so we'll go on with Mariah.
My name's Mariah. I grew up in West Virginia, I guess, but I also spent some time in the Philippines, where my mom is from. I'm currently a software developer at PNC Bank, and I had a very unconventional way of how I got to become a software developer. So my undergrad was in a science background in exercise physiology at WVU, and then I eventually became a software developer through research and through a boot camp. Is there anything else you want me to explain?
I think that was good. And next we have Tyler Davis.
Yeah, so also grew up in West Virginia, like a few others on this call right now. Went to Fairmont State for undergrad, got my degree in math. Went to North Carolina State for graduate school, where I got my master's degree. Shortly after that, went to JP Morgan Chase in Columbus, where I had a couple different data analyst roles, couple statistical validation of marketing campaigns, predicting customer behavior on digital platforms and things like that. And since then, joined CVS Health in a very similar role.
All right. And next we have Isaac Lambert.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Isaac. I also grew up local here in West Virginia. Grew up in the Fairmont, Marion County area. I went to Fairmont State and majored in cybersecurity. And Tyler was a few years older than me, so he was at the same time. Along with that, I first worked at NASA for a few years as a cybersecurity specialist. And then from there, I wanted to just get out and explore a little bit, so I moved to DC and worked at a bank as well, Capital One. And then after that, now I've come back home to be around family and friends and things I care about, and back working with Agile 5 Technologies. We're a small, locally owned business in West Virginia that focus on federal customers. And I do cybersecurity work there as well.
All right. Adam Smith.
Hello, everyone. My name is Adam Smith. I'm from West Virginia as well. I grew up in Wetzel County. I went to Fairmont State for undergraduate. I got degrees in chemistry and math, and then I went to University of Virginia for my graduate work, and then did a postdoc actually at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, working for Air Force Research Lab. And then I took a job at DuPont in 2007 as a research chemist. And I'm still in that same role. That business, which is the Teflon research business, actually spun off into its own company called Chemours. And so I actually work for a company called Chemours now, but it's in Parkersburg, just south of Parkersburg, in a small town called Washington in West Virginia. But so now, yeah, just senior research chemist, Teflon business, Chemours in Parkersburg.
All right, thank you, Adam. Next we have Craig Thomas. He is on here. I don't see him, so I forgot to add Jeff Reynolds to my list. Sorry, Jeff.
Oh, no problem. Got to save the best for last. It's okay. Um, so I'm Jeff Reynolds. I grew up in Martinsburg, West Virginia. Like the rest of the panelists here, I went to Fairmont State, got a degree in electronics engineering technology. After graduating, I actually got a job for TTI. It is the parent company to Ryobi, Rigid, Milwaukee. Basically, a lot of notable power tool brands that you could see at Home Depot, Walmart, Lowe's. So I designed their chargers, ended up moving down to South Carolina. Now I basically work on Rigid and Ryobi specifically, and I'll be designing their next line of tools and chargers that's going to be sold at Home Depot.
All right. So next we will have our Q&A session. Oop. Does anyone have any questions? I see we have a lot of students on here. Do you guys have any questions to ask any of our panelists before? All right, well, if not, I have some questions we can start off with. So our first question, what helped you decide you wanted to pursue your career? And anyone can pop in and answer.
I don't think there's really anything in particular that helped me decide what I wanted to do. I started out as a computer science engineer, and I realized that that was not actually for me. So I had to take a quick look around and see what other degrees that they had. And when I went and looked at electronics engineering, I saw that they would work on PLCs, they'd work on robots, they design small circuits that could basically light up LEDs or automate tasks in your home. I sort of gravitated towards coal mining after that, which is an interesting career choice for a second. And then I realized that I did not want to be underground. So I switched to LiDAR systems and PCB design. And that's where I basically ended up now is hardware. So it's kind of trial and error, I guess. You could say that I started with one degree, didn't particularly like it, tried a different field, and then moved on to a whole different field after that.
Yeah, I'd say it's kind of similar in a sense. Like I always knew I liked math. I had a really good high school teacher for math. I didn't really know what I would do career-wise. I just at the time thought I'd be like a math teacher or something like that. And I didn't really want to be a teacher. So I had to stay as like a bio-chem major for a minute. And I'm like, nah, that's not for me. So it wasn't until I realized like what careers were out there, which is I think part of the reason why we're first is having this career seminar to begin with. Once I realized what was out there, I'm like, all right, I can pursue math and do what I want to do. So I think that moment of seeing like how I could apply my degree is what kind of sold me on it.
For me, it was because I was like a fourth year and I was about to graduate and I wanted to go to med school. But then I decided that I didn't like the idea after I did multiple clinical hours. And so I decided to go and be research lab manager for the neuroscience department that I was working with already to get my clinical hours. And then I actually ended up working with a lot of computer science students to create different technologies for our different types of research we were doing. And then I decided to go back to school, but I didn't want to go and get a whole 4-year degree since my whole degree was in science. So I decided to do a short boot camp, coding boot camp. And that's how I ended up enjoying computers instead of medical.
All right. So it looks like we have some questions in the chat. I think, so Joanna asks, when did you know you were going to do what you are doing now or later?
I think for me, Joanne, it was probably when I was in maybe middle of the high school. I always enjoyed tinkering around with technology computers, and if anyone can remember jailbreaking their iPods, I'm not sure if anyone ever has done that, but that's something that was popular to do when I was in like middle school and high school. So I enjoyed doing those things, and from that, it kind of sold me on the direction of cybersecurity.
It was sort of actually a funny story for me. Whenever I was looking for jobs, I was in my 5th year of college. I was looking around. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just really wanted to have a job when I graduated. And there was a brief moment where, when COVID hit, I actually lost 4 of the 5 job offers that I had. And then the 5th job offer, I didn't really want to take because it wasn't something that I was really interested in. So I started looking around. I got a couple more job offers around the nation, and I saw South Carolina, and it was south. It's not very cold in the wintertime. It's warm, but it's not Florida. And I guess it was just like a mix of the place that I was moving to, as well as what I was going to be doing, sort of like seeing what in electronics engineering that I wanted to do.
All right, I guess that segues us into Elizabeth's question. Was it hard finding a job after you guys graduated?
That is kind of a 2-part question. It is, but it isn't. I probably submitted over 800 applications. And I think, I'm not sure if this is common, but let's say like for every 100 that I'd submit, I'd get 8 people or 8 jobs that would call me back. Of the 8, maybe like 2 or 3 would schedule an interview. And of the 2 or 3, I'd only have 1 job offer. And electronics engineering, especially coming from West Virginia, where it was a technology program and not an engineering degree, it was a little bit harder to find a position. So it was, I guess you could say it was tough, because what I was looking for was it was not what my major specifically taught us, I guess would be the best way to say it. A lot of the experience that I gained was through internships, and that's kind of what pushed me towards the PCB design. So it can be tough, but I think as long as you're gearing yourself towards a position that you have the experience in, that your university is specialized in, and even internships, it really isn't too bad. It's not impossible to find a job, but it can be difficult.
Yeah, I agree with Jeff wholeheartedly. I mean, to say it's challenging would be true, right? It is challenging, but there is so many jobs, and like in Jeff's case, like, I mean, especially when you start opening up your door to different locations, like as I did to DC when looking for a change and going down the Carolinas, there's so many. You can, like in West Virginia, in Fairmont, West Virginia, there is a limited amount of, say, electrical engineering jobs or cybersecurity jobs. But you look at the U.S. as a whole, or internationally, there's so many opportunities. So I think it really just depends on, if you say, I want to live here and I want to do this there, that can make it difficult. But if you really just take a breath and look everywhere, I think it really opens up the possibilities.
For me, opportunities opened up after I did multiple internships or any kind of research or volunteer, where I would like volunteer to research in a lab, or I would just do some shadowing. That's how I got my opportunities after college. One of the bigger things after I got my coding certificate, I decided I went and did a lot of meetups. I used meetups.com. So there's different little meetings that you could go through, and like events. This is pre-COVID, where you could go and meet up with other individuals with the interest in technology, or someone's offering a free wine tasting or something like that because they wanted to talk about their new technology they wanted to talk about. And that's how I started networking with other individuals, and that's how I opened and got more opportunities like offered to me in other jobs. And so like by keeping that group of people, I guess that's how I got opportunities open to me.
Yeah, I would definitely second what Isaac was saying about being open, not only to like your location, but somewhat in the field you're in, because there are so many different things that you could specialize in, but all like are pertinent experience to what your ultimate career could be. So don't like focus too much on like, I need my dream job right now. There's a ton of good experience you can gain from jobs that are very similar, that will set you up really well for a position that you really want later on.
All right, so our next question comes from Jordan Means. She asks, did you ever want to do something else before you found your job? And did you ever switch your major in college?
Personally, I did switch one time. I went from computer science to electrical engineering. It's funny though, because I did that and this position actually requires me to code about 50% of the time. So didn't seem like I got too far away from it. There have been multiple times where I'd pick an internship, I'd start the internship and then not really enjoy it. For example, the coal mine, I interned there for almost 2 years, realized that that's not something I wanted to do. It was extremely high voltage. So you're working at volts that are like 1,000 times what comes out of your wall outlet. Whereas now my position, I'm designing a charger where it's going to be plugged into your wall. You're not working on 12,400 kilovolts. You're just working on 120 volts. So it is important to keep your I guess your scope open whenever you're looking for jobs or internships. I guess kind of getting committed to one position isn't always the best option because you just don't know what's out there until you really look around and see like, hey, this degree offers this position or this position. Like electronics engineering is so broad. There's about a million things you could do. And the same thing for, I'm sure, math and for computer science, programming in general. There's just so many opportunities out there.
Yeah, I definitely switched my major. As I mentioned earlier, I did a stint with biochem when I was a freshman. Until ultimately I was like, yeah, I want to do math. Kind of want to be a dentist for a minute. So yeah, it's definitely like normal to have different interests and, go through different experiences and figure out what you like. That's totally a part of being an undergrad. So it's honestly probably like beneficial to do that. It's not get too stuck. Like with this one thing in your head, it's really good to have experience in multiple fields and at least try them out. So, you know if you like it or not.
All right, a dentist, wow. So Jasmine asks, what was the most important factor when deciding on which grad school to attend, if you did attend grad school?
Hi, this is Adam. I went to graduate school, and for me, and I'm sure this depends on the field, but for me, it was what were the different professors at the graduate schools actually studying. It's really about the work that they're doing, and so I visited several different places: Penn State, Michigan, Virginia, Clemson, and the school was certainly important, but really because you work so intimately alongside others in the research group of the professor, it's very critical that you, again, in the chemistry world, that you were interested in the type of work that they were doing. So that's my case, at least. And I shouldn't say that is the most important, but it certainly for me was the most important. I think other people have, other concerns, maybe geographical. Yeah, maybe you like the colors of the mascot or something for the school. It really, if you're in sort of this middle tier of schools, I don't really think it's that critical for getting a job later. So definitely, I would recommend it being something that you feel like you have an interest in.
Yeah, definitely. That's like a perfect segue for me because I applied to quite a variety of schools. So I knew I just wanted to do something stats related, something data analysis related, and that's like there's so many majors, so many grad school programs that say they're stats or say they're data analysis that are quite different. I mean, I knew I wanted to go into career straight after grad school. I wasn't interested in a doctorate or anything like that or research. I knew I wanted to work for like private company. So, I had several schools that I was interested in, got offers from. But ultimately, the reason I picked the one I did was just North Carolina State's analytics program. Was just because they had like the best data in terms of like career placement, and that was like what their courses were focused on, like being able to go straight into a job and contribute. So definitely, like I think pick something that helps you get to where you want to be. It's like if you're interested in like research, it probably would have been a better idea for me to go. It's like a normal stats program that probably had like a segue to a PhD program or something like that. That's not what I want to do. So I took something that was a little bit more career focused.
All right, so Oscar asks an interesting question that kind of goes off to the last one. Did your career affect what place you settled down at?
It can a lot. I mean, in the end, there's definitely some geographical, I would think, hurdles to be overcame, and I think it does really matter to a lot of people. I mean, if you go to a certain field, there's a high chance it ends up in a more metropolitan area, right, as opposed to something else. So like, I think it definitely does matters a lot.
Well, for my case, it definitely did. I mean, I couldn't really find a job up in West Virginia with COVID going on, so South Carolina was one of my choices. It wasn't the only thing that moved me down here. I mean, I definitely wanted to get to a warmer climate, but that did have a huge impact considering that the position required me to come down here. So yeah, if you're looking to find a career someplace in Colorado, California, Texas, it definitely can.
Yeah,
For
for
me-
sure.
Sorry, go ahead. Who was?
No, go ahead. No, I was just saying I agree. That's good.
For me, reason why I picked my job was because I wanted somewhere where I could just work from anywhere. So as of now, I work remotely, and I've been working remotely since before COVID. And so I'm able to travel anywhere I want to because I'm very passionate about traveling. And so I can go anywhere in the world as long as I am working in the same time zone with my teammates. So that's
Yeah, I'd say it definitely affected my first job. So I went to grad school in Raleigh, North Carolina, and then went to Columbus, Ohio to work for JP Morgan. So my first job definitely kind of affected where I was located at. But after that, also just like Mariah, I got a job working remotely before the pandemic hit. And that's like something I've been pretty passionate about for a long time, just being able to be where I want to be, having control over my schedule a little bit, being super autonomous. And, you know, that was like my goal for a long time. That's what I have now. So now, not so much, but definitely at first. And as I mentioned earlier, you know, being open to your location and the type of job you take at first can give you really good experience to set you up later on.
All right, very cool. So our next question, would you rate internships as being very important or less important to obtaining a job in your field?
Very important. That's my vote. For sure.
very important because you get to meet other people.
Also agree. Very important. Yeah, not
Very
only the
important.
experience. Yeah,
Very.
not only the experience, but the connections you make, like networking and knowing people that work at a certain place, that helps you a ton in terms of like your chances of securing a job.
Yeah, I would 110% say that while hitting the books is important, networking and internshiping could possibly be even more. I mean, it's so important to landing jobs.
It also looks really good whenever you're during like when you're going through an interview. Your prospective employer will always ask you like, oh, what did you learn at this internship? So it's really important. Like that's the one thing that a lot of students I think look over is just not doing internships during the summer. It looks really, really good for an employer.
All right, so it sounds like internships are really important, especially the experiences and people that you gain from it. So that leads us into our next question. How did you guys find the jobs you applied to? Like, what resources did you use, if any? Specifically in West Virginia, if you have that.
For an internship, an internship particularly, I found actually, I mean, just the story is I was working at Bob Evans as a freshman in college as a server, and the person I had to be talking to ended up being the person who hired me a mentor later on, and it worked at NASA. So I think just don't think you have to be on a job board and think you have to be on Indeed or LinkedIn to find a job, especially if in terms of getting an internship. Just be open to like always finding. I mean, I was 18, 19 years old, yeah, 18, working at Bob Evans on a Sunday morning when I landed my first internship. So just be open to other possibilities, not just, Indeed.com.
One of the best resources would also be your professors. A lot of times they get contacts from different industries. We'd always have First Energy come through and they'd present an internship that they wanted to have students work at. And I mean, your professors, they have a lot of contacts, especially if they have a board meeting with a lot of the field leaders in the community. I mean, that's a really good resource. LinkedIn is also another really good one. And career fairs. If there's a career fair near you, if it's 30 minutes away from you, even if it's an hour away, sometimes it's worth going up there because you will not be like, you would be surprised at how often someone from Morgantown will drive up to Pittsburgh just to find an intern because they can't find that intern in WVU. Like it is always worth going to those career fairs. That is one of the best things that you can network at.
I would say also another way is to actually, this sort of is combined with the regional question someone asked. If there's a specific region that you are interested in working, you could do some research, look around that area and see what companies, if it's a company, or what schools are around there, and just go to their corporate website directly. Oftentimes they will have their own HR, human resources page where they list job openings. And as someone mentioned earlier, it could be something, maybe you're a BS, math graduate and they're looking for an accountant. I mean, if it's something to get you in the door or to send your application in, it may turn out that you get your foot in the door, or maybe the hiring manager gets your application and sends it to somebody that they know within their company that's looking for a job elsewhere. And so do your homework, do your research, and look at their websites directly, because I know my company typically gets enough applications just by posting openings directly on our site, so that we don't go to Monster or LinkedIn or other sites like that.
Yeah, and most universities have career placement departments or something like that. So make friends with the people that work in there. My grad program had something like that was very, very good, where companies were recruiting from the program and had a very good relationship with the people that worked in that department. And they have track your resume and your experience and stuff like that. So make friends with the people that work for your career placement department at your university.
All right, so our next question is from Maria. She asks, if you had a chance to go back and change one thing about your career-related decision, what would it be?
So if we had one thing to go back and change about a different career, or in the process of getting our career?
Anything, I think anything career decision related.
Decision really. Something I might have did was not as rush into a certain choice the most. Like I do love cybersecurity, I love my job. But I think from, I mentioned in high school, as soon as I decided, I was like, okay, I'm doing this. And once I started college, I was like slowly kind of like, I'm doing this and doing that, right? I was super, super laser focused. And maybe sometimes that didn't allow me to go out and explore different things, right? Like I do have a passion for sociology and psychology, but that is never really something that I'll probably pick up professionally now unless I really want to start over again. So I think I'm happy and I'm glad and I'm satisfied with my career choice, but I think I would be really, really open-minded as I start my career about the different possibilities.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Just being more open. When I took the internship at the coal mine, I stayed there for almost 2.5 years, and I kind of lost sight of other positions and other fields within electronics engineering. And if it hadn't been for COVID, I don't think I would have really explored anything else. I think I would have just looked at it and been like, oh, well, I want to go in high voltage industries. And I think I kind of lost sight of what I really wanted to do just because there was a position lined up for me right at the end of my schooling, just go straight into the workforce. So I think definitely just trying out more positions just to see what I liked in the field would have been something that I would have changed.
I think the biggest thing for me is like going to more events on campus, going to things like this that you're all at right now, like career seminars and just events where you can meet people. Because like I mentioned earlier, like maybe even more important than your actual degree and the experience you have is like knowing people. Like I can't stress that part of it enough. So that's something I think I would have done a better job at. I mean, I got lucky ending up where I'm at, don't get me wrong, but I think you improve your chances a lot by going to events and meeting people.
I would echo Tyler because I would have wanted to network more because I got more opportunities after I networked, after I got my current job. And it would have been better if I stayed and just kept on networking and communicating with other people and just meeting other individuals similar as me. So I would emphasize talking to other people, networking.
All right. Next question. Did any of you take a gap year between undergrad and grad school?
No, I didn't, but I don't think it's that critical. I think the graduate schools, when you apply from taking a gap year, will in some way want to know why. And it's not that you don't have a good answer, but they will probably ask that. But I don't think it's, I mean, it's never too late.
Yeah, I didn't take one either, but pretty much agree with Adam. It's not a super big deal, I don't think, but just be prepared to talk about it because employers will 100% ask you about it.
I would just say if you take a gap year, you should just make sure you build experiences during that year. Like don't just go traveling the world for a whole year. Yeah, because the employers would ask what did you do or what did you learn during your gap year of experiences to help you for your career.
All right. So next question is from Gabby. She asks if it would be beneficial to do any lab type internships, even though that's not what you guys specifically do, just to get experience, or would it be beneficial to do internships primarily? I guess this is like an opinion based.
I guess. I mean, I did, when I was an undergrad, I did like 3 labs. I was a lab intern for 3 labs. And one of them was how I got my research job and eventually how I became passionate about coding. So I would say if that's the only opportunity or only experience that you have that you can do right now, then I would say go for it. But if not, and you have other opportunities, I would always look for the best match for you.
Someone asked how important are internships earlier, and I think everybody was a unanimous sort of very important. And so agree with Mariah, if it's the only thing you have, then it's definitely better than nothing. And you're going into it knowing it's not a full-time position, so I wouldn't worry too much about it being a drag. I would definitely, and again, Tyler keeps saying it, and I totally agree. You might meet somebody during that internship that is a direct link to somebody down the road that might be your dream job, 5 years later. And so it's just very, very important to, you hear the word networking, and networking, it's a key word. It doesn't just mean, okay, meet people. It means literally form this web because, there's 6 degrees of separation between any 2 humans, right? So if you can extend the net and interface with lots of different people, even if they're not in your dream situation, I would definitely do that.
All right, that's very insightful. So Josiah asks, how long would you recommend sticking with an internship/job before switching to a different job?
An internship, I'm not sure it matters a whole lot. I feel like internships usually have a cap on their time anyway. But jobs, I mean, I feel like, at least to my knowledge, industry standard, like if you take a job, you should stay there for probably a year. At least that's appropriate. But I mean, obviously life happens, so it's not the worst thing if like something comes up in your life that's super important to you that you have to bail before that. But yeah, generally, if you can, you would want to stick with a job for about a year.
Yeah, for sure. Tyler's right. I mean, of course, there's circumstances, right? Like if it's not a emotionally safe workplace, or if you need to move because of family. I mean, there's definitely exceptions, right? Like don't be in a job and say, oh, like I have to stay here, even though it's bad things are happening. But I wouldn't get a job and be happy there and just say, oh, it's been a year. The rule says I should leave now because it's been a year. Like I think you really just make the best decision for you. Something else to look at is even if you want to change a job, doesn't mean you have to change companies. Like when I was at Capital One, I didn't change jobs while I was there, but many people I knew on the team, like they would change roles a lot, right? They might be doing development work and they might be analysts, they might do staff, right? You don't have to change a company per se to change jobs. So if you do get bored, you want a different challenge, just bring it up to your supervisor and say, hey, I like the company, I like the culture, but I'm just looking for a new challenge.
There's also the financial aspect of it too. If you accept a relocation package with a company, there's always clauses that you have to look at. You will be liable to pay some of it back if you don't stay with the company for a certain amount of time. In terms of, is there an appropriate amount of time to stay? I mean, like Tyler said, at least a year, but yeah, there's a bunch of, I guess, factors to look at. If you are trying to get a position that pays more, you could always renegotiate with your company and say, hey, I've been here for 2 years and this company offered more money. Can we negotiate a pay increase or something? So there's definitely a lot that goes into that one, whether you stick around or leave.
Sounds like you're speaking from experience, Jeff, with the relocation.
Well, I was just looking to see when I could start negotiating my salary with my company, because since being at TTI, I've had probably 13 to 15 people reach out to me on LinkedIn and saying, hey, we want you to come over and interview with us. We think that you'd be a great fit. And these were actually companies that I previously applied for and didn't get the position because I didn't have the experience. But just taking the job at TTI has shown them that, hey, this person is interested in this type of work. They want to do PCB development. This is perfect for what we have now. And if I were to leave, I would be financially responsible for a portion of the relocation package and the starting bonus that I accepted. So not that I don't enjoy my job. I love it thoroughly. I learn something every single day, and it's a challenge having to work with China, and I have to constantly send emails back and forth, and the language barriers. It just there's a lot to consider. But in terms of, do I want to leave the job yet? No. But if a position offers me more, then I would consider it.
Yeah, and remember, as we're talking about careers, it's not always about money, and there's also benefits, and there's also lifestyle, right? I mean, a place can offer you more dollars an hour, but what if the other place is offering you healthcare? Like, this is especially something like we maybe don't talk about a lot. Is we talk about jobs a lot, but just remember, like, benefits are really big. Like when you're first out of college and you're like, oh, I got a really great job offer. Maybe you don't really care about that healthcare or that 401k, but really familiarize yourself with the benefits package. An employer that will match 6 or 7% of the money you put into savings for your retirement, it's a big deal. That's 7% really raise in a way that you're not seeing. So just really pay attention to those benefits too as you look at different jobs, especially your first ones.
All right, that was really helpful even for me, just thinking about that kind of stuff. We have about 5 minutes left in this part of the session. We'll finish off with a couple of our questions here. Ethan Andres asks, how would you recommend about funding yourself through graduate school?
We definitely have to do a lot of work on your own. I mean, the money's not going to come straight to you. It's not going to fall in your lap or anything like that. So you definitely have to do a ton of your own work, navigating the university, asking, talking to financial aid people, It's a whole deal. Just know that you have to put a lot of your own work into it. Nobody's going to come to you and help you with it. You're just going to have to really put in a lot of your own effort, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think another thing is just don't be maybe ashamed is not the right word, but maybe hesitant. Hesitant's the right word. Don't be hesitant to just reach out and say, hey, like I don't want to take on 6 figures of students, 7 figures of student debt. I want to be responsible. I want to, it's okay to ask financially. I don't feel like it's something you shouldn't do. Like really be open, like there's scholarships, grants, apply for things and be honest and upfront. Be like, you want financial aid. Don't feel like that's something you don't deserve or that it isn't for you. It's for everyone, and take advantage of that, and don't be hesitant to go after any resource you can.
This is a little indirect too, but my company would actually pay for grad school if I wanted to over the course of 2 to 3 years. So if you end up getting a position with a company, some companies will pay you to go to school. And you just go for 1 or 2 classes a semester. It takes a little bit longer that way, but you still maintain your full salary. You're not having to pay anything for your graduate school, and you kind of have a safety net there. As long as you're great or your work performance doesn't slip, they usually don't mind paying for it.
I would agree. I've seen multiple employers do that.
Right, that's a good thing to look out for when looking for internships. So Lydia ask about the application process. How many grad schools would you recommend applying to, and when is best to start applying?
I think I applied to about 10 schools, something around there. But don't try to get to a certain number just because you think you have to get to that certain number. You don't want to apply to schools that even if you got an offer from them, that you're going to decline it, or you're going to hate going there if you do accept it. So be honest with yourself about if you like that school or not when you are applying. But yeah, 10 to 15 is, I would say, pretty common. When to start applying? Sorry, I think I missed that part. I can't even remember, honestly. I feel like it's definitely in the fall of my senior year, mid-fall semester, something like that. I don't know if anybody else has a more specific timeline for that.
Yeah, I just remember each school having a specific deadline. So as long as you met the deadline, right, I think it was pretty set. It seemed like it was easy enough, once you wrote your letter, you could recycle a lot of your literature, right, for each school. I think, I applied to between 8 and a dozen maybe. So that sounds pretty close to what Tyler was saying. I'd be curious to see how many schools Erica applied to. So I don't know if she'll chime in, but again, I don't think there's a certain number.
Erica says she applied to about 8 to 10 as well. So if you didn't get your question answered, you could ask the panelists individually as we open the breakout session. So there are going to be 4 groups open, and you should be able to move into them yourself once I open them. And so each one of the panelists will be in one of the rooms. So Mariah, can you be in room 1, Jeff, room 2, Tyler, room 3, and Isaac in room 4? And just let me know if you guys can't move into your rooms. So you should be able to see it.
Sorry, I know that Lydia had wanted to talk to Adam about some career questions. So I didn't want to jump ahead of you with my question. Do you want to go ahead, Lydia? And Amber, I see you're here.
Yeah, I can. So I'm a chemistry major at UC, and ideally I do want to be a research chemist and maybe teach. So I'm already so excited to talk to you. I'm already a research lab assistant at school, and I'm in a few clubs. Do you have any recommendations of what else I could be doing right now to prepare for my career.
Right. So what year did you say you were?
I just finished my sophomore year.
Okay. I mean, no, I think that's great. I think what you heard is probably, again, like, somebody asked the question, like, what one thing would you change if you could go back, all that sort of thing. And right, I think that generally means knowing now, if you knew then what you know now, sort of the question, right? And it really is networking. So it seems odd, but, just, ask your professors for one good networking contact, ask your fellow students. Heck, it could be a high school chemistry teacher or something, just any contact at all. Send them an email, ask them the same question, and you'd be surprised at how quickly your network will develop, and you'll find people that are people like the people that hired me, and they're like, oh man, we have to get this person. So it really is surprising, but it really is just what you yourself can do to establish this network, I think. And so, yeah, the clubs are great. All of that is great. And don't get me wrong. But if you really want to do more, it's surprisingly not necessarily affiliated directly with the curriculum you're taking. It's more go off and do things on your own. Like I said, just, hey, set me up with, again, do you know somebody in a local industry, and I'll go have, lunch with them or whatever. It can be very, very driven by you.
Thank you.
Are you comfortable doing that kind of thing?
I mean, yeah.
Nervous,
I can be.
right? But yeah, sure, yeah. I really think again, it may not seem like it will do much, but I guarantee you it will. And making all those contacts is just really invaluable. I think if you had asked every single person that was on the panel earlier, how did they specifically get their current specific job, I would almost guarantee that it had something to do with, oh, well, so-and-so knew so-and-so, and that's how I got recommended, or they are the one that told me to apply, or, et cetera. So building that up as effectively and as quickly as you can is what I would recommend.
I'm just going to build on Adam's answer here for just a second, Lydia, in terms of like when he asked you how comfortable you were doing that. So in my job, I have to ask people for things all the time, right? I have to ask them for money. I have to ask them for time. And one of the things that I have learned to do is to really embrace the attitude that people want to help you. If you're doing something good, they want to be part of it. And so now I assume that if I don't ask them, if they want to be part of it, if they're willing to help, then I'm doing them a disservice. And if they say no, it's not because they don't like me and they don't think what I'm doing is important. It's just that they can't right then. It's just bad timing. And I think that attitude can really help you just walk through the door and say, hey, I hear about what you're doing. I'd love to have lunch with you. Or if you don't have time for that, maybe you have time for like a 15-minute Zoom chat and just to say hello, ask you a couple of questions. I'm so interested in what you're doing. What you're doing is so cool.
You might be surprised at how eager somebody like that would be. I mean, if somebody came up to me and said, hey, I'm at the local school and I heard you were a chemist nearby, do you want to have lunch? I'd be like, yeah, because if somebody offered me that opportunity when I was their age, I would have totally appreciated it. So thanks. Yeah, thanks, Sarah. That's great add on. And I put my email address in the chat before we broke out, but can I do that right now too? And then if you want to take it down, happy to answer any kind of questions you have later or whatever.
That would be very helpful. Thank you.
Sure. See, your network just grew today by one.
I'm doing it.
I'd like to hear from Joanna. What would you recommend for Lydia? I know she's specific to chemistry, but from the secondary school, secondary education level, like what would you see as something she should be doing now?
Geez, I am in and out of being able to hear. I'm trying to get to my kiddo's soccer game.
Oh, sorry,
So-
sorry to put you
No,
on the
it's
spot.
okay. No, I love being put on the spot. It's good for me. But just recap the question. Is this also interest in teaching?
Well, go ahead, Lydia. I'll let you tell her.
Yeah, ideally, I would probably want to do mostly research, but I think I'm not quite sure yet. I think I would maybe want to teach, but mostly I'm interested in research.
Well, I'm going to say this off the record, and I'm going to deny I ever said it if you ever call me out on it. Just kidding, but only sort of. I think what's really important to remember are that the certification requirements in West Virginia are changing all the time. And right now, in order to be a secondary teacher in West Virginia, to get your foot in the door, the only thing you need to do is pass a content test. So that's radically changed. I don't really think that's a good idea, so I don't go out there proselytizing it, but I think it's a really wonderful idea if you're able to get on a substitute list at your local district, because your time off is different than other people's. And as soon as you finish 2 years, sometimes you can do that as an aide. So to just be able to be in a classroom space and feel your own instinct for interacting with kids, because teaching is like a bug, and either you get it or you don't. And if you get it, it's really hard to put down. There's a huge need for really great middle and high school teachers right now in math and science. So I would be happy to follow up with you anytime about what those prospects look like, but there are job openings all across the state every single day. Thanks for tossing the ball, Adam. I appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you, Joanna. And I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I never actually even thought of that. But, you mentioned graduate school, Lydia, and even if they may, actually, when I was in graduate school, I think they discouraged you from having other jobs while you were in graduate school. And obviously that's for obvious reasons, but it may be a situation where you find yourself in curriculum, but then being able to find an opportunity to substitute at a, again, a high school level, maybe. I know you're maybe thinking about teaching in college, but teaching is teaching at some level, right? And so that would be something that you could do maybe is just look, especially if you don't have to go through and get the education portion of the curriculum that they used to require. Yeah, the other thing is, and again, I was just kind of smiling when you were talking, because I was in the exact same boat as you. And when all the way up till I finished my postdoc, I just really didn't know. And I actually had concurrent offers from academia and industry, and so it came down to kind of a final wire, and I was just like, I don't know what to do. And so I took the job at DuPont, and really what sold me on it was that I had talked to somebody at Marietta College in Ohio, and they were needing adjunct faculty members in their chemistry department. And so, I actually had this opportunity to be able to work a full-time industrial job doing research for a company, but then being able to fulfill again, like Joanna said, kind of the bug of teaching as an adjunct. So, and I wouldn't get discouraged. I mean, you'll have plenty of time to figure out, and maybe you'll end up trying both. I mean, heck, I know people that work, and you can, is Steve, no, Steve's not in this group. Steve Roof, I don't know if you know Steve, he's a professor at Fairmont State, but anyway, he worked in an industry for 15 or 20 years, I think, before going and becoming a professor. And I've seen the other be true as well, so.
Yeah, I mean, I've been set on chemistry since like middle school. Like I knew that was what I wanted to do.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I thought I was done then. And then I got to college and people were like, okay, well, what do you want to do with chemistry? I'm like, I don't know. I didn't know I had to choose. Like I just wanted to do chemistry. So yeah, I feel like that's been a little difficult, like figuring out exactly what I want to do and like what field of chemistry I want to be in and like things like that.
Yeah, there's time. It's okay.
Adam, here's the question I want to ask you. This is a little bit of a turn, but I'm afraid if I don't sneak it in there, we won't be able to. So, one of the things I think a lot about in West Virginia, it's also about, I want all of our first two students and all of our students in West Virginia to have every possibility open to them I want them to be able to go anywhere in the world and be successful. And I also want them to have the option to stay in West Virginia and be successful. And I know that you are someone who is working in a STEM career field, but you're also an employer that's looking at applications and thinking about recruiting, thinking about the workforce pipeline. And so I'm really interested from the employer perspective. I think if we had more time in West Virginia with job seekers and employers talking to each other, we could probably solve a lot of disconnect, because we live in a state where employers can't find anybody to hire. Like, it's very hard to build a competitive applicant pool. And we want applicants from West Virginia. Those are much better fits generally for jobs in West Virginia, for retention and performance. But at the same time, young people think there's not opportunity for them here in West Virginia. And so I'm wondering, you know, sort of as from the employer perspective, what kinds of, where are the places that you're going to try to communicate with people that are looking for jobs who may be from West Virginia or who may be in West Virginia specifically? And what are some of the things that work for you with that? And I'm interested just in your sort of analysis of what that landscape looks like right now, and where it may be broken and where it may be working.
Sure. And it's sort of it's not a loaded question, but it has a couple of different answers depending on which type of workforce we're looking for. Because I do research and development, but it's also at a manufacturing site. And so a lot of the positions at our site are what we would call a chemical operator or a material handler or a pack out operator. So these are positions that require you know, hands-on abilities and skill sets, but that typically would not require an advanced degree, not even a 2-year degree in many cases. It's more of a accelerated chemical operator training certification program. And so for those, it's very much just the local pool. You know, we go to our Workforce West Virginia representatives, we you know, post information. We're going to have this course offering, and then lots and lots of people apply to that. And out of that pool of people, we take the top scorers and hire them. And they're, you know, they're making $60,000 just, you know, freshly hired. To think about more of the, let's say, scientist or the PI, which, you know, principal investigator, or like the engineers or the chemists, we do go around to local schools, you know, to Ohio University in Athens. It's you know, Morgantown, it's Marshall, it's, you know, so it is local programs to get for example, a BS level engineer or a BS level chemist for more of the, let's say, yes, scientist role. And those have worked really well in the past, to the point where that's been all we've had to do. But you're right, lately, and I don't know the reason, and when I say lately, I mean in the last 5 years, let's say, it hasn't been as fruitful. And so I don't know what happened there, to be honest with you. I don't really know if it's someone on our end not pushing forward as well. Well, I can tell you that in terms of an external affairs or an outreach division, we're very, very lean. I mean, you know, everybody kind of cut costs in 2008, and then again just a few years ago. And so a lot of those types of roles, you know, where you're not directly tied to producing pounds and making money, you know, you end up finding yourself unemployed, unfortunately. And so we don't have, I think probably a lot of it is we don't have the infrastructure anymore to do those, you know, career fairs and a set of a dozen or so people that you know, very religiously go out to every single school around, you know, 100-mile radius of the plant site and do that. So I think those would work, and they could work differently these days, especially with COVID, but even just within the social media world. But I think if we could recapture that, I think it would still work, because I got to believe there's still enough good, you know, quote unquote good chemists, engineers, scientists in the state. Because you're right, I mean, retention is difficult. You know, if we get someone from you know, any big city in the country coming to West Virginia for a job, the pay is competitive, everything is competitive except the location. They're like, what do you do for fun around here? And it's like, well, and so if you're growing up from West Virginia, know the area, you're much more likely to have somebody stay at the position. So I know Lydia, I know First Two Network, I know Sarah, I know Joanna. Amber, I'm looking at you. What can you say?
Yeah, I'm a biology major and a chemistry and psychology double minor at Fairmont State. And I really want to go to med school. But I've always had this love for chemistry, and my high school teacher really kind of sparked that in me. I had him for just general chemistry and then AP chemistry too. So I really enjoyed that. But I don't know, I guess I kind of view med school as a way to apply that love for chemistry. So I didn't know if there was any advice you would have for me or not.
Well, I would say that if med school is a passion and what am I trying to say? I wouldn't want you to go to med school for the wrong reasons. Absolutely, med school and becoming a physician, a surgeon, a general practitioner, whatever you want to do, there's obviously a very big role of troubleshooting in that, and so that's research, right? And so maybe that's the bug that you have and the thing that you like about it. I would say that I actually have a twin brother. His name's Aaron. He also went to Fairmont State, and he majored in biology actually, and so a lot of people there, a lot of people. He knows all the of course that was in '97, so some of the professors have changed, I'm sure. But anyway, my point is he's a professor at LSU now, and he does research, and the research is really cool. He's a plant geneticist. He grows these plants and does genetic research to try to manipulate the plant, engineer the plant so that they uptake heavy metals out of soil. And so think about these areas around, a lot of it's in Southeast Asia, but there are a lot of areas that are contaminated with heavy metals like cadmium and mercury, and it's very hazardous for the local populations there. And so one way to get rid of them is excavation. And so you go in there with all this heavy equipment. It's very destructive to the environment. It takes a lot of time, a lot of money. And he's not the only one in the world, obviously, but he's doing research where they have very specific types of plants where they can plant these seeds all over the surface of this contaminated area. The plant has been engineered so that it uptakes the metals out of the soil preferentially, and then once the plants grow up high enough, they just cut them down and then they can incinerate them off site. And so you don't destroy the land, you don't destroy the property. And so the reason for telling you that story is that even within biology, you can have really, really exciting research opportunities. And so again, it's this knowing, how do you know what's out there? Well, I would give you the same advice that I gave Lydia. It's just really just try to focus your wants and goals within your career to trying to network and kind of steer your web in the way that you're trying to formulate what the ideal job really is. And there's plenty of time, again, and as long as you're doing something, you're doing the right thing, but really try to see what's out there. Because again, just to be honest, and I'm not saying you're in this category, a lot of people just were kind of like, well, I kind of do pretty well in chemistry and biology, and so okay, I'll go to med school. And again, that's fine. That's totally fine. I mean, that's more than fine. That's great. I wouldn't want you to find yourself in a situation where it's like, oh, I'm in med school because that's what I thought I should do. Or I didn't really think I had anything else I could do. Yeah, I'll stop talking now. But again, my email's right up there. So just send me an email and I'll reach back out to you. Looks like we're recombining, or yeah, everybody's combining again. Or our group is just so cool, everybody's coming back to it.
It's the latter. Adam, I threw something in the chat there because I'm really interested in if it would be a cool marketing strategy for First Two to start thinking about advertising ourselves as a group that grows people to stay in West Virginia.
Yeah, no, it is great because again, retention is just so much higher for locals.
If you start doing that, have you guys seen the Ascend and all that stuff lately with Ascend in West Virginia? about keeping people and getting people here. Like that's a really big topic right now for West Virginia is retaining
Yeah.
talent and getting talent here. Like there is some stuff is, I mean, it's just a prototype, right? Just a few applications, but to get people to move here, and there's something called Marion Remote. Like there's been a lot of push in West Virginia to get people along with keeping them.
Yeah, I definitely think that's one thing that First Two needs to be partnering on with you guys. And also we did a combined application just recently with 5 partners, including First Two and Generation West Virginia. And the mission of Generation West Virginia is to attract and retain young talent in West Virginia. But like I was saying to Adam and Lydia before everybody else came back on, like I want our students from West Virginia to have every opportunity open to them and to be able to be anywhere they want to be in the world, including be in West Virginia if they want to. And so we
Yeah,
got to work to
absolutely.
make those pathways.
Yep. Employers won't come here and set up shop if they don't have the talent pipeline, and people can't stay here if there is no place to work.
All right, I accidentally left. And I'm back. So we're in the last couple minutes of our meeting here. So we'll finish up with this quick survey. I can share that link in the chat, or you can go to this QR code. If you have like a smartphone, you could just pull up your camera and then scan over there. I think Jade dropped the link in the chat for you guys. So take a quick minute to do that, and then we'll go on to do our giveaways for the Green Bank Observatory items.